What's going on, traders? We got a lot to talk about in this video. First off, congratulations if you played the upside heading into today. What a crazy, crazy day. Bitcoin saw new highs, crypto saw new highs, stocks, indices, everything went absolutely crazy. As you guys can see, you're looking at a Tesla play that I took, $8,000 off the Tesla play in our Discord. Absolutely insane play. If you want access to plays like this, Discord link is in the description below. But now we have to talk about a possible top. Are we nearing the top? As you guys know, one of my targets for the triple Qs was 505. My all-time high targets for triple Qs was 505 and possibly 510. Right now, we're looking at the NQ daily time frame. And as you guys can see, we're within this rising wedge pattern. And what's important to note here is how close we are to the top of this rising wedge pattern. You guys see it here. We bounced here, we bounced here, we bounced here, we rejected, rejected, rejected. So you guys know I don't force these patterns, I don't make these things up. And it looks like we're getting really, really close to the top, which is around 21,000. Now, we talked about this in the last video, or maybe the last few videos, right? Where we pretty much need to clear this area out right here, where we just really, the market just hates to leave these little voids open, and we call it liquidity grab, right? These voids open. And if you're new to the channel, basically what I'm saying is that anytime the market rallies, whether it's to the upside or to the downside, and it just leaves no type of structure. So as you guys can see here, you're just seeing nothing but, bearish candles, nothing but downside. At some point, the market is going to want to revisit this area, and you see it right here. You broke down completely, just broke down, no type of structure, nothing. You left this huge space open, and then eventually you started to revisit and pretty much clear out this area. But now we're doing the same thing, but in reverse. We're leaving a lot of space open, a lot of I guess, lack for better wording, void open, right? We're leaving this huge space open. So at some point in time, we talked about this in the last video. We warned about this, that if the market does the exact same thing, then we can be looking at a massive drop, right? We can be looking at an insane drop because we really don't have any structure. We have something, a little something here, but after that, yeah, you're pretty much free falling. Okay, so you're looking at the same scenario, but in reverse. So at some point in time, and I do imagine it's going to be pretty soon between tomorrow and Friday. Don't quote me on the exact timing, but I do imagine that we are going to see some type of drop. Now, is it going to be like some super drop or crash or correction? I can't say for sure, but I'm pretty sure we're going to see this area get cleared out. As you guys can see, we have a lot of fair value gaps open. Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but we have at least two fair value gaps open on the 4-hour time frame at around 20,400 range. 20,400, 20,300, and then you have another one all the way down to about 20,200, 20,100 range. So at some point in time, I do think the NQ is going to want to clear out this area. I think that goes without saying. But before we do that, I do imagine that we're going to see a move a little bit higher towards at least 21,000. You guys know that one of my targets is 21,300. Maybe we, do a little fake breakout, and then break down, or we just break down immediately once we hit the top of this rising wedge pattern. Okay. So something like this, where I'm actually just messing this all up, right? But something like this, we hit the top of the rising wedge pattern, and then we start to break down, mitigate these fair value gaps, and then possibly we start seeing this rising wedge pattern on the NQ actually play out, and we see more downside heading into these gap fills all the way over here, right? Because we still have gaps to the downside on the NQ, all the way down to about 19,500. So at some point in time, I do imagine that the market, or at least NQ, is going to want to revisit this area and really clear out a lot of this space. Okay. So what's important here, and this is the last thing I want to talk about. What's really important here is that we clear out this turbulence, okay? We clear out this turbulence, and then we break below this rising wedge pattern. Once we do that, we're pretty much free to be extremely bearish, okay? At least I'm going to be very bearish, okay? So we want to clear out. Let's mark it, right. We want to clear out first these guys here. We talked about this plenty of times, right? We want to clear out this area of turbulence right here, and then not only do we want to do that, but we want to pretty much stop these guys out of their position, stop these guys out of their position, and then break below the rising wedge, therefore confirming that it's a rising wedge pattern. And then we break further down and start filling these gaps to the downside at around 19,500. So that's what I'm looking at for the NQ. Point being, I think upside is very limited from this point on. We moved very fast, very quickly. We did a lot overnight. So I do imagine at some point in time, we're going to do another liquidity grab towards the downside, and then we'll have to see what happens from there. ES. ES, same, pretty much the same thing. ES is pretty much at this trend line. Now it is, pretty much teasing a little bit above it. It is a little bit above it right now. But I don't think this is going to last much longer. I don't imagine that we're just going to break straight through 6K. I do have a target about 5,990, so I do think we do have a little bit more upside. But 6K, I do imagine it's going to be a very, very strong psych level. And then from there, I do think there's a possibility that we see some type of rejection and start again clearing out this area to the downside because I mean we talked about this multiple times. Just the same thing with NQ, right? We're leaving a lot of this space open. We did the same thing over here where we just saw this massive drop to the downside, no type of structure at all. We left this huge space open. We pretty much are clearing out this space, but in the process of clearing out this space, we're leaving another void open towards the downside. So now we're just pretty much repeating the process, but in reverse. So at some point in time, again, we're going to want to clear out this area. You guys see it. We got a bunch of fair value gaps that's open to the downside. We got one, two, three, four, all the way to the downside that needs to be mitigated. So I do imagine that we are going to see some type of drop, really a nasty drop in the near future. Whether rate cuts causes that or something else, I don't know. Maybe Trump does something crazy. Who knows? But regardless, I do imagine at some point in time we're going to want to revisit this area, clear out this area, and we'll see what happens from there. All right, so let's look at the triple Qs. Triple Q is pretty much the same thing, right? Um, so we look at let's go to the daily time frame because it just looks a little bit better. So I mean, look where we are on the triple Qs. I mean, you guys see it here. We talked about this channel plenty of times before. I deleted just so it's not clunky and we're not too focused on it. But now we have to bring this channel back. We rejected here. We rejected here multiple times, over and over, and then we finally broke down. We broke out. We retested. So you guys know just how serious this trend line is, right? We broke out. We retested, broke higher, then we broke back below it, retested again, and then gapped down and started to break completely down. We rejected here, rejected here, rejected here, so on and so forth. You guys get the idea, right? And so now we're pretty much back. We're pretty close, okay? We're really close. We're pretty much back at the same spot, right? And if we want to mark resistance, we're right there. I mean, we're literally right there. Boom. So upside is very limited. I will say that much. Can we just break out and just continue to go higher? Sure. But again, I wouldn't trust it. Okay. That's just me. Do what you want with that information, but I just would not trust any more upside from this point on. I just wouldn't. Okay. I do imagine that we're going to see somewhat a little bit more of a pump heading into Fed rate cuts. But if I had to guess, I imagine that's going to be the catalyst that possibly causes some type of rejection up here and drop us further down. Right now, the first target I'm looking at is this gap fill at around 490, all the way down to about 493, 492 range. And then we pretty much mitigate this fair value gap. And any lower than that, you're looking at a move all the way down to about 465, 460. We'll talk about that once we get there. But right now, I just want you guys to focus on this gap fill and just really focus on where we currently are on the triple Qs. Again, maybe you guys need a closer look, but again, we're just very, very limited on upside right now. Okay. And we moved very fast. I mean, I don't think I have to tell you guys that. We moved very fast overnight. We did a lot overnight. And what do I tell you guys? Anytime the market rallies, whether it's to the upside or to the downside, the next day or two, it has to cool down. It needs to cool down, whether that cool down is consolidation or a drop or upside, depending on the direction the original rally was. It needs to cool down regardless. Okay, so at some point in time between tomorrow and Friday, we're going to see some type of cool down. If I really wanted to guess, just throw a dart out there, I would say that Friday we will see a lot of profit taken. Okay, Friday being the latest. I don't think we're gonna hold these gains heading into to Friday. I just don't. Okay, and I could be wrong, but at some point in time we're going to see a sell off. Okay, I think that goes without saying. You got some massive gaps to the downside. You got a lot of illiquid areas to the downside. You got a lot of fair value gaps to the downside. The math is mathing. 1 + 1 = 2. Simple as that. I mean, I I don't know what else to tell you guys. If you don't believe that there's going to be some type of drop from this point on, I don't know what to tell you. We moved very fast overnight. I'm not a perma bear or anything, but it just adds up. It just makes sense. And again, we're pretty much close to this trend. And as you guys can see, we've seen how many times we rejected this trend, and we attempted to break out, sure, but now we're back at this area, and we're looking at pretty much double resistance. Okay, so I'm not gonna drag it out any longer. I'll just again just be very careful between here and about 510. Okay, that's all I will say about it. So now we're going to look at the SPY real quick. SPY, same thing. Same thing you're looking at as far as the ES and the triple Qs and Q, so on and so forth. You have very limited upside. We could see a move towards about 597, maybe 600. You guys know that one of my all-time high targets on the SPY is 600. And the lowest I'm looking at is about 595 minimum. But from there, I just don't think we're going to like see some drastic breakout over 600. Okay, that's a very, very strong psych level. I might be wrong, but I'm not counting on it. But 600 is a very, very tough psych level. 6,000 on the ES, very strong psych level. NQ 21K, extremely strong psych level. I mean, these psych levels are very tough. So I would definitely not be in a trade on once we're in those levels or being calls at those levels. I just wouldn't. That's just me. Do what you want with that information. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at in regards to the SPY. You have this down. If you want to see downside, from this point on, I will be careful at around 595, between 595, 598. And then from there, we potentially reject, and we start filling these gaps all the way down to about 575, 576 range. Again, you're looking at the daily time frame. I mean, you're looking at all this illiquid area. You're looking at all these fair value gaps to the downside. You got one, you got two, you got three, you got four. All these fair value gaps to the downside that needs to be mitigated. So whenever a drop is coming, which I think is going to happen soon. I mean, look at the 4 hour. This is insane. You just have so much a liquid area down here. And if you don't believe me, I mean, just think about what I've been saying in the last few videos about what happened back here. We saw this liquid drop, and I told you guys over and over, at some point in time, we need to clear out this area. Now we're doing the same thing in reverse. We need to clear out this area at some point in time. So whenever a drop is coming, it's going to be massive. It's going to be pretty ugly. Okay, I don't know what's going to cause it, but I do think it's going to be an ugly drop. Okay, so just be careful for the next few days. If you want to sit on cash, by all means, but just again, just be very careful trading within the next few days. I I think the drop is coming very soon. Okay, and how big it is, I don't know. Pause. All right. So, other than that, that's really all I have in regards to the SPY. So next, I want to talk about Apple. Okay, where is Apple? And yeah, we'll talk about Bitcoin, of course. All right, but I want to talk about Apple real quick. Apple is giving signs that the market wants to drop. The fact that Apple just gave back all its gains like almost immediately at market open just screams that it wants to drop. Okay, it just screams it, and the market is pretty much holding it hostage. Now, can that change? Of course, unless Apple gets news overnight. But I mean, the reality of it is Apple doesn't really have an incentive to go higher right now. I mean, we saw what happened on his earnings. We see what happens on his iPhone sales and all that stuff. It doesn't really have an incentive. Now, what I will say is that at some point in time, I mean, I will be a hypocrite not to mention this. At some point in time, Apple does need to clear this area out. It does. Okay, so maybe tomorrow we see a bounce heading into FOMC ratings. I don't know. But regardless, this area is very liquid. You have fair value gaps to the upside. Apple at some point will need to see this area get cleared out. I don't know what will cause that. Maybe it gets like personal news, or maybe it's just waiting on rate cuts. Who knows? But the fact that the market just pumped and went crazy overnight, and Apple it attempted to go higher, sure, but it gave it all back like almost immediately at open. So something to pay attention to. So either Apple wants to drop lower and the market is just holding it hostage, or it's just waiting on some type of news, whether that's rate cuts or I don't know, unemployment claims, whatever the case may be, or it's waiting on personal news. Who knows? But I would just be careful. I would just pay attention to Apple. I think it's just giving signs that it wants to drop. But the fact that this whole area right here is very liquid, and at some point in time, again, like I mentioned on the NQ and everything else, it needs to come back up here. So we'll see. Okay, we will see in regards to Apple. Next, I want to talk about Tesla. Tesla, same thing. Tesla needs to drop at some point in time. I don't think may have a little more upside. We could be seeing a move towards about 300, but other than that, from there, you're looking very illiquid. So you're seeing this illiquid movement all across the board in regards to big tech. So a drop is going to happen. It's just a matter of when. Okay. So I mean, you're seeing it across the board. You're seeing it on NQ. I showed you guys on NQ, and Tesla at some point in time needs to get back to 200. It will need to get back to 200. I know that's a crazy statement. I know that's a bold claim, but again, look how liquid we are to the downside. This needs to get cleared out. This gap needs to get filled at some point in time. Again, it doesn't have to happen overnight. Tomorrow, it may happen a week from now. Who knows? But this needs to get cleared out as well. Huge fair value gap that's just open right here. So I will be careful. Okay, I would be careful in regards to big tech and just the overall market right now. Again, enjoy the upside while it's here. I traded Tesla to the upside. We traded Tesla, we traded Apple to the upside. So we're definitely trying to enjoy this upside while it's here. But my point being is that you need to be careful from this point. Okay. I think that's obvious for the experienced trader, but for those who are new, be very, very careful. I think upside is very limited from this point on. You're looking at a lot of areas where you're heading towards resistance, very strong resistance. That NQ, I think it was NQ or SPY. I want to say it was SPY. This is weekly. No, this isn't. It's not SPY. Let me see. ES. It might be ES. Yeah, ES. ES. This is weekly. This is a weekly level right here. Okay. You bounced here. You bounced here. You did your little roller coaster dance all back and forth here. Now you're back up here. So if we end this week with this bullish engulfing candle, that could be great. But it can also, if we don't close above this trend, it can lead into a bull trap. Okay. It can. All right. And everyone will see this and be like, oh, yeah, the market's going to go higher because bullish engulfing candle. But then you have this trend right here that the ES is somewhat respecting. Okay. A little here and there, but it's somewhat respected. But regardless, you have this trend here. This can easily lead into a bull trap. Okay, so that's just what I want to mention right there. Tesla, again, Tesla, I just think it's going to see downside eventually. I don't think it's going to continue higher. 300, very tough psych level. It has a little bit more room to 300, but from there, I don't think it's going to continue to head higher. I mean, obviously, it's going to tease a little bit higher than 300. I don't. It's not going to be like an exact pinpoint target or anything like that. But I would just be careful around that area and look for a possible move back to the downside. Again, this whole area, you don't have to believe me. You can, maybe you're like a Tesla head or something, but this area at some point in time, all the way down to 200, needs to get cleared out. There's no way Tesla's going to keep leaving this open for very long. Okay, we'll see. All right, we will see. Lastly, I want to talk about NVIDIA, and then I will get you guys up out of here. Okay, NVIDIA. So, in regards to NVIDIA, I think NVIDIA looks better than a lot of the big guys. Okay, I will say that much. Nvidia has a lot of room to the upside. I will say that much. I'm not going to deny that. Okay, Nvidia has room all the way to about 155. Okay, what's interesting is that our Discord bot is actually has been actually alerting calls to 155 on Nvidia. What I will say is that me personally, the reason why I'm not jumping into those calls yet is I would love to see a move back to 140 before jumping to those calls. Um, so I would like to see a move like this where we pretty much retest this area all the way down to about 140, 141. I think that's a beautiful opportunity because look right here. You have all this turbulence right here. So I do imagine that this will be a perfect opportunity to get into Nvidia calls and you see that move all the way back up to about 157, 160. Okay, so Nvidia, out of everything else, Nvidia looks like it has the most potential for upside. I will say that much, okay? Um, and again, our Discord bot has been alerting a lot of NVIDIA calls. Well, I wouldn't say a lot of NVIDIA calls, but it has been alerting NVIDIA calls to about you got 210 calls for Amazon for March 2025, and then you have these 150 calls for January 2025 for NVIDIA. I believe there's like a 140, yeah, 145 call, and then I believe there was like a 155 call. I'm not gonna hunt it down, but there was definitely a 155 call somewhere in there as well. So out of everything else, NVIDIA looks probably the best for more potential upside. Okay, so I would pay attention to that, and maybe, just maybe, NVIDIA can just lead the charge to newer highs, or either that the market's just going to consolidate and just wait for Nvidia to get done with its move. Who knows? But Nvidia, out of everything else, Nvidia looks the best. Maybe it drops at 140 right away and then bounce from there, or maybe it starts heading straight to 155. We'll see. Okay. Other than that, that's all I have, traders. If you want to see how we're going to trade this market heading into the next few days, Discord link is in the description below. There's also a free Discord where we pretty much chat it up, have discussions and things like that. I don't alert trades there, but there is a paid Discord where I alert all my trades. You get access to all our bots and things like that. So feel free to join either one in the description below, whichever one fits your trading style or your thought process. And until the next video, traders, have a good one.